What's going on, guys? Jim Surratt, owner of Hammer Strength & Conditioning here in Sierra Vista, coming at you today. Wanted to kind of try to get some content rolling, okay? So I've talked a lot about, if you've checked out my channel in the past, I've talked a lot about the conjugate method, how it's applicable for tactical populations, how it can be applied to tactical populations, and different ways that you can go about using it, right? So today I wanted to kind of do something a little bit different, right? So I kind of gave you guys a tour yesterday of the facility, sort of talk a little bit about what we're about as far as a program, as far as an organization, as a company. Again, just for shameless plug, we are a strength and conditioning facility located here in Sierra Vista. We are specializing, at least that's the goal, in tactical strength and conditioning. So working with law enforcement officers, firefighters, first responders, EMTs, as well as military populations, but we are open to any and all. Strength athletes, general population, general fitness enthusiasts, people who are just looking to make a change in their lives, right? We are here for you, as long as you're willing to do the work. Come in, check us out, sign up, we'll get you squared away. So what I wanted to do today was just give a review of some gear that I use, right? So I've kind of taken a step back from, I guess I should say, I've kind of taken a step back from geared lifting, just by virtue of where I'm at, right? Like I'd moved to Arizona in March. I don't have a crew. I don't have a regular gym in the area that I can train multiply at. There's a gym up in Tucson Strength. They're a great facility, more of a raw USPA, USAPL type gym as compared to like geared. No mono, but they have the hooks, which is what I've been using for the last 2.5, almost 3 years anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. But it's about an hour drive, and I can only make it up there on Saturdays with work. And now that I have this, I won't be able to make it up there as much. So again, I've kind of taken a step back from the geared lifting, put myself more in a position of just focusing on the business, trying to get it rolling, and just focusing on developing some raw strength. However, I still think it's important that companies that do right by their customers get the love they deserve, right? So today, I wanted to review some of the gear that I have from F8 Powerlifting, or from F8 Customs. So F8 Customs has been around for quite a while now, kind of like maybe not like a long time, a few years. Started off, for those of you who don't know, started off like in the band shirts, and then have progressed to poly gear. I've tried their band shirts. Banded benching is not for me. I think it's cool. I love seeing dudes like Tony Carlino, bench 12, 1,300 pounds, whatever. Like, I think that's super awesome. It's just not for me. Like, I like multiply, I like poly, and that's where I'm gonna stay as long, as I'm able to, right? But F8 makes really great, high quality poly gear. So as far as I understand it, so F8 partnered with Metal, right? So Metal is I think, Finnish company. It's an OG in the multiply world. Caught a lot of heat, justifiably so, with the whole George Floyd thing. If you know what I'm talking about, great. If not, I'm not gonna go into it. But the owner of the company, or the founder of the company, made some fairly disparaging remarks and caught a lot of heat. They used to be partnered with Elite FTS, and then Dave Tate, in response to Ano, is his name, the owner or the CEO or the founder of the company, in response to Ano's actions and words and statement, very justifiably parted ways. Elite FTS used to be like an exclusive supplier here in the US of metal gear, and a lot of like in my opinion, sort of OG multiply lifters from like maybe like late 90s, early 2000s, wore metal, right? Obviously Inzer, Titan, both are big players in the poly game and the multiply game, but metal's been around for a very long time, and metal is what I started in. Well, my very, very first shirt ever, my very first bench shirt was an Inzer Phenom, not an STP, not a super duper Phenom, just an Inzer Phenom, and that thing bit, like pinching, bruising, bleeding in the armpits. It was brutal. I hated it. And I was training with a crew at the time, and one of the lifters was sponsored by Elite FTS. And he got me a whole set of metal jack gear, the bright orange stuff, so the bright orange shirt, the briefs, the suit, everything, right? So metal is what I came up with. And then He eventually I don't say graduated, but eventually moved. I tried Inzer. I tried the Inzer Predators. As far as briefs go, loved them. They were great. And then, just like everybody, I've tried Inzer, Titan, Metal. I've had custom briefs made of my own design. Shout out to Pack a Punch Powerlifting, Chris. Chris does a fantastic job creating custom creations. Super gifted, super talented in his process. So if you're looking for custom gear or modifications, hit him up on Instagram, Pack a Punch Powerlifting. He's phenomenal. He built a pair of briefs for me that I, Frankenstein together, at least the concept, and he put them together, and they were great. And then I moved into, once F8 started making poly gear, I moved into F8. So that's what I want to talk about today. So I have here, we'll start off with their single ply briefs. Okay, so this is a suit actually. Shit. Well, you imagine these are briefs. This is a brief. Okay, I have single ply briefs. I just grabbed the wrong thing because I thought these were briefs because they look the same. However, I have single ply briefs from F8. I think they were my first pair of F8s. I actually wore them under, I think, my custom briefs from Pack a Punch. So I had like 4-ply briefs essentially. I had a triple ply custom brief. It was a poly canvas poly. And then I had the F8 brief underneath for a little bit more fill, a little more support as I waxed and waned in my weight or as I gained and lost weight. Loved and still love the single ply briefs. I wear them sometimes if I feel just going like single ply, sometimes I'll wear just the briefs, or I'll put them underneath the suit, or sometimes since I have the suit, I'll talk about it, I'll wear just the single ply suit. As far as the single ply stuff goes, this is not their HD material. So I have their HD briefs over here, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But their single ply material is very, very strong. It's well built, it's well designed. It's got a good pattern to it. It is very flexible. So it's kind of like the Inzer Predators. And that it has a little more flexibility and a little more give to it as compared to like the Titans, right? So anybody who's squatted in Titan gear or benched in Titan gear knows that it's a little more rigid, right? So the support, so for those of you who don't understand, or don't know rather than not understand, but those of you who don't know, gear is supportive equipment, right? And basically what it does is it supports you as you come down, whether you're benching or squatting or deadlifting, it provides support. And then through a process of deformation where the gear stretches under load, it then provides rebound, right? So there's poly and there's canvas. And so shirts are polyester or a poly blend, however, like whatever, thread, weave material goes into it, I don't know. Briefs are poly, shirts are poly, and then suits can either be poly or canvas, right? And so, like anybody who's done geared lifting for a while now, I've tried all different combinations of stuff. And what I finally settled on as far as squatting is my 4-ply F8 HD briefs and then a metal canvas jack. I think it's a phenomenal combination. So again, for those of you who don't understand or don't know, so again, with the poly, there's stretch. Now it's minimal stretch, right? Like I can't sit here and like stretch this out and let it return to shape, but under significant load, it stretches, it deforms, and then it wants to return to its natural shape via elasticity, right? It's not an elastic material, but that's the easiest correlate, easiest analog, right? Or analogy, is that it deforms and then it reshapes, so it provides support and then rebound as you come out of the hole or off the chest, right? So when you look at squatting in particular, since we're talking about briefs and suit today, some people like a poly brief and a poly suit because it gives you support, but it also gives you more rebound than a canvas suit might, right? So canvas is a much stiffer material than the poly, right? And there's different weights of canvas and it comes down to each company. I think I know Metal makes canvas and obviously Inzer makes canvas. Their LUP, their Leviathan Ultra Pro, and then their OG Leviathan. I've squatted in both of those suits. I loved the LUP. I thought it was a phenomenal suit. So the LUP it's a canvas material, but it's 2 pieces joined by laces down the side that you can tighten or loosen based on how much support and compression you want. I think I squatted my first 1,000 in training in the LUP with probably like Inzer Predator briefs, maybe Titans. I hadn't gotten to the F8s yet. And then I tried an OG Leviathan. So OG just meaning like it's a solid, OG just means like original gangster, right? So like the solid piece, well, it's 2 pieces, but it's like fabric welded and then has a seam over top of that fabric weld, a very thick, like rubberized type seam. It's much more supportive because it's a solid piece, right? It's much more solid construction as compared to the LUP, which is much more dynamic. The OG Leviathan and then even the metal canvas are much more static, if that makes sense, right? So again, you can either squat in poly briefs and a poly suit and get a little bit less support, a little less stopping power in the hole and more rebound, or you can squat in poly briefs and a canvas suit, get more stopping power, and then use the brief aspect underneath your suit to provide the rebound, right? So it just comes down to what you feel comfortable in. I've seen people squat big in both canvas and poly, so it just comes down to what you want. Right, okay, but let's go back to my single ply briefs / suit. So again, F8 took Metal's designs, so partnered with Metal, took their designs and started fabricating suits, gear, essentially here in the US, right? Metal still produces material, still produces gear, but because of what happened with the George Floyd stuff and the fallout that the powerlifting community had with Metal, I don't think they're as popular. So F8 kind of took that market and put their own spin on it, right? So it's sort of like, it's still the same stuff, but it's just under a different name. But the way I look at it, I'm supporting F8, I'm not supporting Metal, and that's how I see it. So the F8 suit is designed very similarly to the F8 briefs, at least the single ply briefs, right? So it's got these this gusset here, the crotch panel, again, very sturdy construction, very sturdy stitching. It's got support seams that help stop and provide rebound, and then it's got these power bands, so to speak, these power stripes up the back that also provide a little bit of support and rebound, right? So again, just single ply. I've seen dudes do phenomenal things in single ply, both in person and online. I've squatted about 600 in just the single ply suit, which is a far cry from my 1,000 plus in my full multiply. That's okay, right? We all try different things. I will probably never be like a true single ply guy. I really like the support. I like the aspect of lifting huge weights, right? At least squatting and deadlifting. I can't bench for shit because of my tricep and my neck. I'm just not a good bencher. But I like the idea of squatting massive weights. And I like the challenge that true multiply brings. Like single ply has its own challenges, right? It tends to be tighter because that's how you get the support, right? It has to be more compressive. It has to be more resistant to change or to deformation than like a pair of multiply briefs or multiply suit. So again, very sturdy construction, clean, okay, clean material, clean design, clean construction, well stitched. I mean, not that I'm a tailor, right? I don't know shit about it, but just from looking at it aesthetically, you can tell it was put together well. Solid construction. I've never had a piece of F8 equipment blow out or tear so far. I'm not saying it can't happen or that it doesn't happen, but I haven't had it happen to me. So single ply suit and briefs. The single ply suit that I have, it does not have adjustable straps, which makes it difficult to get into. But obviously you need that because as you come down in a suit, right, the suit stretches, so the tighter the straps are around your shoulders, the more stretch you get, the more support you get, the more rebound you get. Okay, so now let's move on to the HD briefs. So I have a pair of 2-ply and 4-ply HD briefs. So we'll talk about the 2-plies first. So the 2-ply is designed similarly to the single ply. So it's got the reinforced crotch, right? It's got the hip seams, and then it's got the reinforced straps up the back, and then it's got this diamond grid stitch up the back as well. So the grid stitch creates additional tension in the material, right? So if you bind the material together, right? So this is 2 plies of material sewn together. It's not laminated, it's sewn together. So like Titan is much thinner because it's laminated, it's compressed, and it's glued together, whereas F8, Metal, and Inzer all do, as far as I understand, like they sew their layers together, right? So there's a little more play in the material. So the grid stitch provides additional tension and additional resistance to deformation in the material, and thereby additional support, and then a more aggressive rebound, right? So these are size 44, I believe. Yep, 44. I weigh about 250 right now. I think the heaviest I've been while trying to wear these is about 260, a little maybe 265, and I was pushing my body weight to a pretty extreme level for me. I use my 2 plies for deadlifting. So there's probably a couple different schools of thought, right? So obviously the more material you have, the more plies you have, the more support you get, the more rebound you get, the more pop, right? That's the technical term is pop, right? The more pop you get. Now, in squatting or with squatting, you want that additional material, right? Because as you come down, right, especially with significant or major or massive weight, the weight is pushing you into position, right? So you are resisting, you are basically controlled falling the weight down into position, resisting the pressure and the weight and the momentum of that weight downwards, and then trying to stand back up with it, right? So the weight is forcing you into position so you can get away with having additional material, right? Because you have that weight pushing you down, you have that external load forcing you into position, and you are just resisting it. Deadlifting is a different story, right? Because deadlifting, you are starting from a dead stop. There's no eccentric, well, there's no loaded eccentric phase with a deadlift, right? You don't start from the top, lower the weight, and then stand back up, right? You start from a dead stop, you load, you create tension in your system, or through your body, your system, and then you stand up, right? So there's a line of like diminishing returns, or a point of diminishing returns when it comes to plies, or it comes to layers and material in the deadlift, right? More in the deadlift is not always better, because the more gear you have binding up around your hips, right, which is kind of in this area, right, where these big seams are, the less likely you are to be able to get into an advantageous or efficient or effective position, and the more you're gonna have to either rely on brute strength or the gear to really help you out, right, to do the work for you, essentially. So I have come to really appreciate having less material when I deadlift. So I have the 2-ply HD briefs right here, and then I have I think it's a 2-ply deadlift suit from F8 as well. So the only thing that I don't have of F8 is the canvas suit, and that's because I don't have $500 to spend right now, or to justify spending on a new squat suit when I'm not really going to use it that much right now. So I have 2-ply briefs and a 2-ply suit. I've used a Titan Velocity suit before, really liked it. The only issue I had with the Titan Velocity was that the straps were so thick, like so wide, that they cut into my neck, right? And they're very long too, so you have these like 2 huge things like out in front of you that you have to like pull away from your neck so they don't choke you, right? The F8 suit, much thinner, much lighter, much more flexible, just like all the F8 gear and all the metal gear as compared to Titan especially, but still very supportive. And the good thing about, so far that I've discovered, the F8 deadlift suit is that it can be both conventional and sumo, right? Because like, we can really get nuancy, and like Overkill does a really good job. The one thing they kind of do well is, and I mean that very sincerely because I've had Overkill stuff, didn't like it, took forever to get, so never going back, right? But they do a good job of like customizing gear to what fits the lifter best, right? And if you like Overkill gear, great. It's just not for me. So you can talk about like the leg angle, right? So if you look at like a suit or a pair of briefs, sometimes that leg angle can change. So like, you know, a sumo stance might have a more flared leg because you're in that wider stance, where a conventional suit or conventional briefs might have a narrower, like have less of a flare because your legs are closer together, right? So the F8 deadlift suit so far that I found is mostly appropriate for both conventional and sumo, right? I've used it when I did a little strongman phase. I did a strongman competition. I would put the suit on and just pull conventional with the suit. You know, and like with conventional, you really rely on the straps and the suit to do a lot for you, right? Because you have a really hard time getting into an effective position. So basically, when it comes to conventional deadlifting in the suit, you crank the shit out of the straps, and then you just have to fight to get into position, and then you hope that you have enough strap and enough rebound on that suit to get you off the floor, and then enough momentum and brute strength to carry you through the rest of the lift, right? Sumo's a little bit different story. Sumo has a shorter moment arm between where the barbell is and where your hip is, right? So it's a shorter moment arm, right? So your hips aren't as far back as compared to where you are relative to the bar. And you have to be more, I think, technical, with your execution, right? Like, because if you can muscle the shit out of a conventional deadlift, and you can still stand up. You can round back it, you can cat back it, you can pull the crap out of it, and you can still stand up with it, right? It may suck and it may not feel good, you may get hurt, it may be ugly, but you can still do it, right? You're less likely, in my opinion, to ramp, which is where you pull the deadlift or pull the bar up your thighs, where like you hitch it, your knees shoot forward and use your thighs as a ramp to pull the bar up. Conventional as compared to sumo, especially in gear, right? So with sumo deadlifting in gear, once you get out of position, you're basically screwed, right? So wider stance, there's more tension on the suit, there's more tension in the brief, so slightly less strap. But again, the good news about the F8 suit, which I'll probably review at another time, is that it has that ability to be applied to both sumo and conventional with, you know, I think minimal or marginal difference between the two as far as output and results, right? So again, 2-ply brief, HD meaning heavy duty. So this is a different material than their single-ply material. It's a thicker, heavier material. The straps are bigger, or the seam welds, whatever you want to call them, are bigger. They're more robust. Definitely built more for squatting than anything else, but still very effective. So these are my 4-ply. So these things weigh probably, I don't know, I want to say about 10 pounds, maybe less, but it feels like 10 pounds. Similar in design, or basically exact the same in design as the 2-plies. They're just twice as many layers. So 4 plies of material, 4 layers of material, super effective for squatting, terrible for deadlifting, right? Because again, like I talked about, when you squat, you want as much support and stopping power and rebound as possible, right? So, and again, you have the weight pushing you into position. So you are actively being forced into position in a squat as compared to a deadlift where you are passively being pushed into position via a squat, where in the deadlift, you have to actively pull yourself into position to get effective leverages, right? So again, there's probably still a point of diminishing returns with material on squat. I just haven't found it yet. So I started off with, again, probably 2-ply jacks and then a 2-ply suit, so 4 plies of material total, but when I first started powerlifting. And then I moved to, I think, a 3-ply Inzer Predator, like a size 40. And I thought that was like squatting on the moon, man. Like, had like rocket packs strapped to my ass. And loved them. The only thing that I didn't like about them is that they didn't have these loops on them. These are super convenient, right? Because the old school way of getting your briefs on is either you loop them or you roll them over a barbell or you roll them over like a J-hook, or you get like vice grips and you pull, that kind of stuff, right? And it really wears and tears in the material, and eventually you get holes in it, right? And then that's, you know, it could be catastrophic because it's a structural integrity issue at that point. So whoever started, I don't know if it was Titan or maybe it was Overkill, I don't know who did it first, but whoever started putting straps on their briefs is a fucking genius. Because all you gotta do now is put chains here, you put carabiners through the loops, you hook chains to a barbell, you hang and you sit right into it and they slide right on. Well, slide right on being a relative term. I think the first time I put these on, it took me about 25 minutes to get them on. I almost blew my knee out trying to like Cossack squat into them. Actually, that's not true, not with this pair. I don't know what happened, but I had a pair of 44s, my first pair of 44s. They came, I couldn't get them on. Well, I did eventually, but like I said, it took about half an hour. And I hurt my knee actually trying to get them on. So I sent them back to be customized, right? So I had them cut, and then I had the laces the corset put down the side so I could adjust them. So somehow in the meantime, they sent me another pair of 44s. So there's just some error, some clerical or logistical error on their end. So I received not only a brand new pair of 44s, but also my customized pair of previous 44s. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna try them. So these went right on. So I think F8 does a really, really good job of being standard with their sizing, right? Being consistent and sort of uniform with their sizing. And I know I hadn't lost like at least a significant amount of weight, at least enough weight to make a difference in how these would fit or how two different pairs of size 44s would fit. But these went right on. So, so super lucky with that because these are fantastic. These are probably, like I said, Chris with Pack a Punch Powerlifting, he built a pair of triple ply briefs for me. I found all the material. I found some like waterproofed, like sort of like latex backed polyester and then some canvas, and we put it together, and like they're super heavy duty, and they were great. Like I love those briefs. I still have them, I'll never give them away, right? You know, a lot of gear comes and goes, right? Like gear rotates in and out of your arsenal or in and out of your sort of, yeah, I'll just call it your arsenal. And your wardrobe, I guess you could say. But I'll never give away those custom pairs, or that custom pair, because they're phenomenal and I have a lot of sentimental value in them. But as far as like stock, non-customized, off-the-shelf type stuff, these are the best briefs I've ever had. Again, super thick, reinforced seams, super thick crotch, lots of support. Again, the diamond grid stitching up the back, the loops, again, very clean. They've seen some little wear and tear because I've had them for a while now, and they've like gone, you know, they've been exposed to the suit and all that kind of stuff a bunch of times. So they've worn a little bit, but they've held up great. I've squatted over 1,000 pounds in just these. It was an ugly ass squat, but I've squatted 1,000 pounds in just my briefs, in just my 4-ply HD F8 briefs. And I can't say that about any other brief that I've worn. Not that the brief does all the work. I was probably stronger then than I had ever been. But yeah, I've never squatted. I've tried squatting 1,000 pounds in my Inzer Predators, and was just way too unstable. Couldn't do it. So these are a step and above, far and away beyond the Predators. And I will probably never ever go back to like an Inzer, at least as far as briefs. Now, I'll review the shirts in another video. One, because it's hot and I need to work out. But the Inzer shirts are a little bit different story than their briefs. So are F8s. So, but yeah, phenomenal briefs. I wouldn't recommend 4-ply HDs if you are brand new to powerlifting. I mean, if you're ready to jump in and get your feet wet right away and like just go into the deep end, go for it, right? You will not be disappointed. You might be scared, right? But you won't be disappointed. So I want to make it clear, this is not in any way promoted. I am not that big time where anybody's like, hey man, like promote our product and anything like that. Like I just felt like, again, companies that take care of their customers, which F8 does, like F8 has phenomenal turnaround time. They have phenomenal customer service. Their prices are reasonable and their material, their product is top quality, right? And anybody who's done geared lifting for long enough knows that there's inconsistencies with the gear. Doesn't matter what company it is, right? Overkill is notorious for getting sizing wrong. Even if you send in your custom measurements, they get their sizing wrong. They take weeks or months to get you your stuff. And I know that from personal experience. I'm not just like, you know, second or third handing that. Like, I know how long it can take to get some overkill stuff. The Titan stuff is pretty good. It's just way rigid, which can be good, can be bad, it depends on what you like. The Inzer stuff I've seen, so personal experience, The briefs and the suits are their best product. Their SDP is really good as well, but I've had experience with the blue, the red, and the black SDP. So Inzer claims that the material is all the same regardless of the color, and I call bullshit on that, right? Because I've had the same size shirt, the same number of plies. I've had a black triple ply SDP and a red triple ply SDP, and the red was so stretchy I got zero pop out of it, like just done. Like I could touch like 315 in it, right? And that should not happen in a triple ply shirt with a collar like the diamond stitch collar that SDPs have, right? They kind of make it famous. So there's absolutely inconsistencies with Inzer's product. But their suits are good, their LUP is phenomenal, especially for somebody who's just getting into canvas who might not want to like experience the claustrophobia aspect of being wedged or being squished into a full-blown canvas suit. The OG Leviathan is a phenomenal suit. The only thing I don't like about the OG suit is that the straps are super thick, so you can't feel the bar on your back very well. So I cannot recommend F8 enough. Again, I'm not paid to do this. This is just because I'm bored, and I want to make sure that the people who take care of their customers get love. So if you are interested in geared powerlifting, have questions, feel free to hit me up. You can hit me up on my personal Instagram at Jimberjacked, or on my gym Instagram at HammerSNC. You can email me at hammersnc@gmail.com. We'll go from there. So thanks for sticking around. Thanks for listening. Thanks for checking out the channel. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, all that kind of stuff. And as always, don't waste the pain.